A man is found dead on a beach. No one knows his name. No one ever will. Every single label has been cut from his clothes. Every tag, every marking, surgically removed. And in a hidden pocket, sewn into the waistband of his trousers, investigators find a tiny rolled-up piece of paper. On it, 2 words in Persian. This is the story of the Somerton Man. Here is what makes this case different from every other unidentified body ever found. This isn't a case of poor record-keeping. It isn't a case of a drifter nobody cared about. The man on that beach was immaculate. His shoes were polished. His suit was pressed. His hands showed no signs of manual labor. Whoever he was, he came from somewhere, and someone in that world knew him. And yet, after 75 years of investigation, after the involvement of intelligence agencies, forensic scientists, code breakers, and some of the most advanced DNA technology the modern world has produced, we still cannot say with certainty who this man was or how he died. But here is what I can tell you. The further investigators dug, the stranger this case became. There is a woman connected to this story whose involvement will make your skin crawl. There is a code that has never been fully broken. And there is a theory, one that, if true, would mean this man's death sits at the center of one of the most dangerous intelligence operations of the Cold War. I'll get to all of it. But first, let me take you to the morning it began. It is the first day of December, 1948. Somerton Beach, Adelaide, South Australia. The summer is just beginning. The shore is already busy by morning. Families and couples making use of the warm weather, the gentle stretch of sand between the sea and the dunes. At approximately 6:30 in the morning, 2 men on horseback ride along the beach. They notice a figure lying near the sea wall. A well-dressed man, propped up against the stone, his legs stretched out in front of him, one arm extended to his side. Still, perfectly. Still, the riders assume he is sleeping. They move on. Later that morning, at approximately 7, a jeweler named John Lyons and his wife are walking the beach. They pass the same man. He hasn't moved. His position is almost identical. Mr. Lyons notices something odd. The man's head is tilted at an angle that doesn't look like sleep. One of his arms appears to have been raised and then dropped limply to his side. They too walk on. It is not until around 10:30 in the morning that police are finally called. When officers arrive at Somerton Beach, the man is dead. He is dressed impeccably. Dark trousers, a white shirt, a brown knitted pullover, a double-breasted jacket, a tie. His shoes are clean. His socks are clean. On a morning in midsummer Adelaide, there is no identification on his person, no wallet, no cards, no letters, no keys, nothing. But the absence of identification is only the beginning. When detectives carefully examine his clothing, they discover something that stops the investigation cold. Every single label has been removed, not torn out hastily, cut. Deliberately and cleanly removed from every garment. The brand of his jacket, the tailor's mark on his shirt, the size tag in his trousers, gone, all of it gone. Someone had spent considerable time making sure this man could not be identified through his clothes. The question is whether that someone was him, or someone else. The post-mortem examination is carried out the following day by pathologist Dr. John Bennett Cleland, along with police surgeon Dr. John Matthew Dwyer. What they find is deeply unusual. The man appears to be in excellent physical condition, well-nourished, muscular calves suggesting someone accustomed to walking or physical activity, approximately 40 to 45 years of age, around 5 feet 11 inches tall, fair to auburn hair, Clean-shaven, gray eyes. He's not someone who lived hard. He's someone who took care of himself. The cause of death proves elusive. There is congestion in the brain. The spleen is enlarged to 3 times its normal size. The liver is congested. The stomach lining shows acute inflammation. There is blood in the stomach. All of these signs are consistent with poisoning, but no poison is found. None. The toxicological tests available in 1948 come back with nothing definitive. Dr. Cleland will later state that in his opinion, the man died from heart failure induced by a barbiturate or some form of fast-acting poison that had already metabolized by the time of the examination. The inquest into his death reaches a verdict that is, even by the standards of unusual verdicts, extraordinary. Cause of death: unknown. The man is given a name for the purposes of record-keeping. They call him the Somerton Man. Nobody claims him. He is buried in West Terrace Cemetery on the 14th of June, 1949, after his body is embalmed and kept for 6 months in the hope that someone will come forward. Nobody does. But here is where it gets stranger. 2 weeks after the body is discovered, on the 14th of December, 1948, police are contacted by the cloakroom staff at Adelaide railway station. Unclaimed luggage has been sitting in the station since the 30th of November, the day before the body was found. The bag is a brown suitcase. Inside, investigators find a collection of clothing. Again, every single label has been removed from every garment. There are pairs of trousers, a dressing gown, pajamas, shaving equipment, a pair of shoes, a knife with a sharpened blade, thread, scissors, needles. The scissors and the thread are particularly noted. They raise a question that investigators cannot shake. Did this man tailor his own clothes? Did he remove his own labels? And if so, why? There is one exception. On a laundry tag, the name Keene appears in ink. T. Keene, or possibly Keene, or Keene. Police cannot be certain of the spelling. They search extensively. They find no missing person report matching the description, no record of a T. Keene or any similar name who matches the profile. The name goes nowhere. If you have a theory forming already, keep it in mind. I'll ask you about it at the end. But the most disturbing part is still ahead. For months, the case sits in a state of stubborn, baffling stillness. And then, in July of 1949, 7 months after the man's death, detectives make a discovery that elevates this case from a local mystery to something else entirely. Something no one is prepared for. In re-examining the dead man's trousers, an officer finds a small fob pocket, a tiny concealed pocket sewn into the waistband. It is easy to miss. It is meant to be missed. Inside is a tiny slip of paper. It has been torn from a book. On it, 2 words are printed. Tamam Shud. It is Persian. It means it is finished. It is ended. It is complete. The phrase comes from the final page of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, a collection of 12th century Persian poetry. Poetry about fate, about mortality, about drinking deeply of life because death comes for us all. Someone put these words in a dead man's pocket, or he put them there himself. Police launch a public search for the source of the slip. They publish photographs. They ask the public. They want to know which specific copy of the Rubaiyat had its final page torn out. Several months later, a man comes forward. He wishes to remain anonymous. He tells police that sometime before the 1st of December, 1948, he found a copy of the Rubaiyat sitting in the back seat of his car, which had been left unlocked on Jetty Road in Glenelg, very close to Somerton Beach. He has kept it. He hands it over. On the final page, a small piece has been torn away. It matches the slip found in the dead man's pocket. But investigators notice something else on the inside back cover of that book, something that will redefine this case forever. There are two things written on the back cover of that copy of the Rubaiyat. The first is a local telephone number. The second is a set of 5 lines of capital letters, handwritten in pencil, apparently at random. The letters read, Mergo ababt mit bimpanit bimla aboyakas, item tissim samstigab. And one line that appears to have been crossed out. This is a code. Or it may be the first letters of words in a sentence, an acrostic, a set of initials, or something else entirely. Codebreakers from multiple intelligence agencies will examine these letters over the decades. The U.S. government, the British Signals Intelligence Apparatus, Australian security services, amateur cryptographers, professional linguists, none of them crack it. To this day, the code, if it is a code, remains unbroken. But investigators are not yet done with that book, because there is a phone number, and it leads somewhere. The number belongs to a woman. She is a nurse, young, attractive. She lives in Glenelg, meters from the beach where the Somerton Man was found. We have known her for decades by the pseudonym the media gave her, Jeston. Her real name, revealed only in recent years, is Jessica Thompson. When detectives contact her and ask whether she recognizes the dead man, her reaction is described by the detective present as extremely tense. She denies knowing him, but she is shown a plaster cast made of the dead man's face for identification purposes, and multiple witnesses later describe her reaction as one of shock. One account suggests she almost fainted. She maintains she does not know the man. She is never formally charged with anything. She is never compelled to testify. She gives what information she gives and then withdraws from the investigation. She will take whatever she knows to her grave. She dies in 2007. But here is the detail that investigators and researchers find impossible to ignore. Jessica Thompson's son, Robin Thompson, was born in 1947. Robin Thompson, as an adult, had a rare physical characteristic. He had a condition affecting his ears, a specific structural feature. Unusually shaped upper ear cartilage, a particular folding pattern called hypoplasia of the antihelix. It is a rare trait. The same trait has been identified in photographs of the Somerton Man. And Robin Thompson, when researchers approached him, refused to provide a DNA sample. He died in 2009. The weight of that silence is considerable. Think for a moment about what this case meant for those who lived inside it. A man died alone on a public beach. He may have had a wife somewhere. Children. A mother who waited by a door that never opened again. Friends who never understood why he vanished. People who grieved without ever knowing what they were grieving. The families of unidentified victims carry a particular kind of suffering that most of us will never experience. It is not grief with a shape. It is grief with a question mark at its center. A permanent open wound. The inability to mourn because you cannot be certain what happened, or even who was lost. We know nothing about who loved this man. We know nothing about who he loved. We have a face, a body, a set of letters on a page, and the shadow of a woman who took something with her when she died. And there is something else that must be said. If this man was murdered, then someone got away with it. Completely. They walked away from that beach, and they lived their life, and they died in a bed somewhere, while the man they killed became a mystery for the world to argue over. That is not an abstraction. That is a real person, discarded, unnamed, unsolved. The most disturbing part of this case isn't the code, or the Persian phrase, or the missing labels. It's the possibility that the truth was always knowable, and someone chose to keep it buried. So, what happened? There are three leading theories, each with its own pull, each with its own problems. The first is suicide. The man came to Adelaide deliberately. He removed his labels to prevent identification. He placed the Tamam Shud slip in his pocket as a final statement. It is finished. He had the Rubaiyat in his possession, a book of poetry about mortality and the acceptance of death. He had the phone number of a woman, perhaps a former lover, perhaps someone whose presence he sought one final time. He took a poison sophisticated enough to metabolize before detection, swallowed it, walked to the beach, and watched the sea until it was over. This theory has real weight. The deliberate removal of all identification, the choice of location, the calm, almost composed posture in which he was found, the poetry, the phrase. These are the actions of someone who planned this, someone who did not want to be found. But there is a problem. No known poison of that era would cause the physical damage found in the Somerton man's organs without leaving a trace. And if someone sophisticated enough to obtain an untraceable poison was sophisticated enough to do that, then the question of who they were and where they came from becomes even more pressing, not less. The second theory is assassination. This theory places the Somerton man firmly in the world of Cold War espionage. The year is 1948. The Soviet Union has just tested atomic technology. Western intelligence agencies are frantically tracking Soviet assets across the globe. Australia, with its uranium deposits and its access to British nuclear information, is a significant target. The case for espionage rests on several pillars. The systematic removal of all identification is not the behavior of a suicidal man. It is the behavior of a professional who operates without a paper trail. The code on the back of the book is consistent with one-time pad encryption, the most secure form of covert communication used by intelligence operatives of the era. The Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam was, it is documented, used as a key text for one-time pad ciphers in Soviet intelligence operations. The untraceable poison is consistent with methods used by state-level actors who needed a death to appear natural or ambiguous. And Jessica Thompson, a nurse with a mysterious phone number in a dead man's book. A nurse who reacted with visible shock to his image. A nurse who, some researchers suggest, may have had her own connections to intelligence circles. This theory feels like it has everything, except proof. There is no confirmed link between the Somerton man and any intelligence service. No document, no record, no defector testimony, just the shape of it, just the pattern. And the third theory is the one that researchers have returned to most obsessively in recent years. The theory that the Somerton man was Carl Charles Webb. In 2022, after years of work, forensic genealogist Colleen Fitzpatrick and a team of researchers announced that DNA extracted from a hair sample taken from the Somerton man's original plaster cast had yielded a result, a possible identity. Carl Webb, born 1905 in Footscray, Victoria, an instrument maker and electrical engineer. He had a wife, Dorothy Robertson. He had a history of domestic difficulty. He had, at some point before 1948, apparently walked away from his life. If Webb is the Somerton man, some elements of the mystery become more explicable. A man in domestic or personal crisis, in debt, in flight, might remove his labels to prevent being traced, might carry a line of poetry about finality, might end up on a beach in Adelaide. But the theory has not been universally accepted. Critics note that the DNA analysis was not from a formal exhumation and used hair, which carries certain limitations. The identification is considered a strong lead by some researchers and inadequate by others. More importantly, if he is Carl Webb, why did Jessica Thompson react as she did? Did she know Carl Webb? And how does a troubled instrument maker from Footscray obtain a poison that outwits the best toxicology available in post-war Australia? The identification of Carl Webb may be the answer. Or it may be another layer on top of the true answer, which still lies somewhere in the dark. The Somerton Man was exhumed in 2021 after decades of legal effort to obtain permission. Researchers hoped that modern DNA analysis from bone samples would confirm an identity or point definitively toward one. The work is ongoing. The case is, technically, still open. Somewhere in Australia, there may be a living descendant of this man. Someone who carries his DNA without knowing it. Someone who might look at photographs of that composed, well-dressed figure on the beach and recognize something in the jaw, the eyes, the line of the nose. And somewhere, perhaps, there is a family that has always wondered why a man they loved simply never came home. The Somerton Man has no headstone with his name. He has a plaque in West Terrace Cemetery. It says, "Here lies the unknown man who was found at Somerton Beach. No name, no date of birth, just a beach," and a phrase that someone wanted found. It is finished. So what do you think really happened? Who was this man? Was he a spy, a broken soul, or someone whose identity we might finally, after 75 years, be on the verge of confirming? Tell me your theory in the comments. I read every single one. Next week, Cold Files Global travels to a different country and a different decade for a case that baffled investigators for an entirely different reason. Subscribe so you don't miss it.